Welcome back to Youth Sports Positive, where we bring the work hard, have fun mentality back into youth sports. I'm Kelsey alongside my dad, Mark Dennehy, and we've got another solo episode here for you guys today. Something that we felt like we wanted to get out pretty much right away is a reaction to the roundtable discussion that occurred at the White House this past week. It was deemed, the official title was Saving College Sports. And as you all know, we have plenty of opinions on a lot of things, but mostly sports. And so we felt like it was important to sit down and break down really what came out of all of this. So it's good to
It's
be
kind of
back.
like, what does Dave Portnoy call it? An emergency press conference?
Yes.
It's kind of like our version of the emergency press conference.
Yes. Yeah. Emergency press conference. Because while this is a podcast rooted in conversations about youth sports, how we're navigating the world of NIL and rev share and all of that bleeds down into youth sports by a mile, because there's a lot going on in youth sports that is kind of eerily similar. And so
I'm actually going to disagree with you and say it doesn't leak down. I'm going to say that the problems
goes
we
up.
have, we'll talk about. We'll get to that.
That's fair. That's fair.
get
I
to
would
that.
say I would actually agree with you. That was just not the correct wording, but it doesn't trickle down as much as it climbs.
Yep, there you go.
With what we're teaching, and so it's important to talk about it. I think the current state of college sports, it's not a secret. It's not really a debate that it's not in a good place.
In terms of yesterday's roundtable, I think it was unanimous in the room that it's in a bad place. I think the people that they brought in, there were 50 people invited. I didn't hear one of them, and I listened to. I know you did too. All 1 hour and 15 minutes of it. No one got up and said they like where college sports is right now. So in the unanimous vote, at least the people that were invited to the roundtable felt like college sports is in a bad place.
And if anybody who listened to it knows how frequently the word bipartisan was thrown around in that conversation, I think they probably said it 50 million times.
Even though there was only one Democrat in the room, we're not going to get political here. This is about college sports, but yes, they did talk quite a bit about bipartisanship, and I do think that, I don't know what you think, Kels, but I do think most people are somewhat taken aback with where we are in college. They're uncomfortable, to say the least.
Well, I think a lot of people are like, how did we get here?
Yeah, well, we tried to talk about that last one, and we'll get back to that a little bit too. But the other thing I heard a lot yesterday, Kels, is how our model was the envy of the world. And we can talk about that a little bit further too. You want to run through some of the participants, because it was kind of a who's who in sports, not just college sports.
It was a who's who, but I think the most important thing to note is really actually who wasn't there. And that was
my thunder. You're stealing my thunder.
Oh, they did not have any college athletes at this roundtable to voice their opinions on college sports.
Yes.
And when asked why they did not have that, they said that they will be asking for their opinion, just not yet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like when you have like the grown-up table and the kids table at Thanksgiving, and the grown-up table's talking about plans for a vacation, and they'll bring it to the kids table when everything's actually decided, and they're just going to present it to them like it was their idea.
Yeah. It's that's going to be an interesting piece, but yes, they were obviously not at the table.
But in terms of who was there, there were quite a few commissioners there. Charlie Baker, the NCAA president, was there. Some professional team owners were there, and presidents, GMs, that conglomerate of the professional landscape. And they spoke about how they wanted to have people who are in the professional landscape as part of these conversations because they have more experience dealing with some of the things that have now made their way into college sports. Some of
They had
the
athletic directors. I think
well, I
the
was getting there.
AD from Notre Dame, right?
The athletic director from Notre Dame, Scott Dolson, the Indiana athletic director, was there. John Donahue, the Stanford athletic director, was there. Jeff Gold, the Nebraska president, was there. Tony Petitti, the Big Ten commissioner. Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner. And it kind of just bounces around. Greg Sankey, the SEC commissioner. Really a lot of conversation around SEC and Big Ten kind of taking the money. And then one of the more prominent names that they highlighted throughout the whole discussion was former Alabama coach Nick Saban. He was the first person to speak outside of anybody of political stature.
Urban Meyer was there as well. There were three coaches there. I'm trying to think who the other coach was. But Urban Meyer and Nick Saban were there for sure. Nick Saban actually, as you said, was the first to talk. Charlie Baker, the head of, is it Sarah Hirschfield? Who's the head of the U.S. Olympic Committee.
Yep.
She spoke and talked a lot about Olympic sports and the effect that a lot of this is having on their sports. We missing anybody? Who else?
We said Urban Meyer. I'm looking at just in terms of coaches. But they did have, they had some agents there as well.
I don't recall hearing from them at all.
We did not hear from them. They kept saying they were there, but from the live stream I saw, I never actually saw them.
And if I knew anything about college sports and agents, we will be hearing from them.
Yes.
They will not be silent.
No.
And nor should they be.
No. When they actually play an integral role in all that has happened, all that's going on. And they talked about that a little bit, but overall, the main points, the main issues that they spoke about in this, it was an hour, 45 minutes, was NIL collectives, the transfer portal, the concerns over the safety is not the right word, but it is in some
protecting
essence,
women,
safety of women's and Olympic sports that don't generate as much revenue as a football or basketball, but mainly football.
Yep.
And the level of urgency of which is required or expected to be taken on these issues. Some
of the athletic directors were talking about how much money is being spent and that, they intimated that there are going to be colleges that are going to be in financial trouble because of this.
There already
it's urgent. So that was stressed as well. Do you want to explain to everybody what an NIL collective is, Kelsey?
The NIL collectives is basically, and it makes me chuckle thinking about it because the way that I understand NIL collectives is it's a group or agency set up in working with the university, but it's separate. And it's how they basically fundraise. That's where donors send their money. And that's how the athletes are getting paid. And that's how all of this money is getting forked up for, say, a 5-star QB in the transfer portal.
That's before revenue generation.
Yes.
Or revenue sharing.
Rev share has started, but so I'm familiar with the Indiana ones just because I'm familiar with the people that work for them.
Yep.
But that one's called Hoosiers Connect. And they work in effort with the university to basically just garner donations, which is funny because this isn't really as new as people think it is. It's been going on for a lot longer. They just weren't out in the open and speaking about it. It was illegal to do in the NCAA, but that doesn't mean it wasn't going on. Yeah. Now that it's legal, it has blown up into this really big part of college athletics and how universities are able to find success based off a dollar sign and a dollar amount that they're able to give to a certain player.
Yeah, I mean, I think I used this reference last time. Back in the 80s when Brian Bosworth was playing for Oklahoma, he was paid by a billionaire oil magnate, $100 an hour to sit and look at an oil rig go up and down. Father Corcoran would be happy with me coming up with the term sinecure, which is basically it's a fake job. And that's what a lot of these NILs, and we can get more into the NIL stuff, Kels, because the football coaches had a lot of issues with the NIL collectives, and it's actually, well, and we can talk about it now. They've kind of bastardized the whole NIL process. Like NIL is just name, image, and likeness. And
Right.
what the Ed O'Bannon case deemed was that the athletes own their name, image, and likeness. And so if you're an athlete and let's say you eat at a particular restaurant and that restaurant decides, hey, I want to make a deal with you. You play volleyball at Indiana. And you know what? If you are on a poster that we use to advertise, we'll let you eat for free the night before every game. That is that volleyball player leveraging their name, image, and likeness to get some sort of financial reward. What happened was, because the colleges they want to control everything, is they started to stockpile these booster donations, and say what you want is supposed to be a paper wall between the collectives and the school. The coaches basically tell the donors where to send the money, and so it's not even, I mean, there are people getting NIL money that really their name, image, and likeness doesn't even really have any value. It's just the fact that they're playing and the coaches want to bring them in. So one of the things they could do right off the bat is get out of the NIL business and just let the agents of the players and the players themselves go out and get NIL money. But, the colleges want to control it, and the boosters, they're hard to control. So
They're very, especially at these Southern schools, and now really infiltrating into the Big Ten, where their football program.
You're showing your bias. You're picking on the SEC. Like it
Well,
didn't happen. Like Jim Harbaugh wasn't doing it in Michigan.
Well, listen, I was just saying it's the Big Ten is just as much of a culprit of it now as the SEC is, where football, and I say football because it is football. Football is what everybody cares about. And that's where they want to see their money going, and they will not allow for their money to go elsewhere. And that's the thing. The people that are writing the checks ultimately do have a say into where their money's going, which is what makes it a little trickier when you're trying to fund some women's sports that maybe aren't as popular as the football program, Olympic sports that aren't as popular as the football program, when they're not really making any money compared to the millions and millions of dollars that these football programs are bringing in through sales, through concessions, through name fill in the blank.
So I posted something on LinkedIn. It's the Alabama Athletic 2024-25 fiscal breakdown. In 2024-25, the football team's revenues were $147.6 million. The men's basketball team's revenue was $24.4 million. Where's women's hoops? Women's hoops brought in $764,000. That's the gross revenues. The only two teams that made any money for Alabama were the football team. When you backed out the expenses, the net was about $64.8 million, and men's basketball made $9.1 million. Every other sport they had
lost money. It was basically, and they still came out net positive. That's correct. Another important thing.
They gave the school back $32.7 million. And so tell me that the presidents don't like getting that check from basically football and basketball. And in reality, it's really football.
Right.
I mean, football made 8 times, 7 times more than net revenue than the basketball team. And so all this whole meeting, this whole roundtable is really about one sport. It's really about football.
It's about taming. Yes, it's about taming the giant and saying, like, how do we control this? And that is where it was an interesting conversation. I had to put it on 1.5 times speed because some of these older gentlemen talk really slow, and I really needed them to
Do you
just
put me on 1.5?
spit it out. You talk pretty quickly. If you cut out, like, you're a big guy. Like I say, like I've been working on it, but you're a big guy, and like a lot of people are. But you usually talk at a decent pace. Some of these guys, I was like, whoa, let's go. You can do it.
Hey, speaking of NIL, how's the hat? This is what I got for Christmas from my daughter.
Original copy.
Yeah, original copy of the Youth Sports Positive hat. We don't have any merch yet, but and I'm definitely not going to be the model for it, but we will at some point. Hopefully, have some merch. We like our logo, so I am getting a little name, image, and likeness for a hat.
There you go. But it was interesting because there wasn't really an answer that came out of this meeting, at least not one that I perceived.
Well, hold on now, because
besides the fact that the president and
well, there were two solutions.
Everybody posed the problem.
There were 2 solutions proposed.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying I heard this come out of the president's mouth. This wasn't anybody else said anything really about it. He would like to go back.
And hold on, you got to give him credit for recognizing there's a problem, which I think everybody does, and organizing the group, even though it was really only one constituency.
Right, and I'm not.
Give him credit for that.
I'm not. It's not even dogging him. I'm just saying this is what he wants. This is what he said he wanted, was to go back to how it was operating before, where students were on scholarship money. He said he would like to potentially enhance it a little bit by allowing students to get paid in more minor ways than they are now. And that the transfer portal wasn't as open and free as it is now. Basically just going back to before the ruling that the Supreme Court made that kind of opened the floodgates to.
So, unless he has a time machine, I don't think his the executive order is going to be able to get that done. And it's a little bit disappointing that he didn't know that the Supreme Court was the one that made the judgment that opened up the floodgates. Like, you have this meeting, I would have thought someone would have prepped him on, all right, this is kind of what happened. That's credit where credit is due. He recognized there's a problem and they organized a group. I just wish he was a little more prepared, with how it all transpired.
Well, and I think part of that too also is what emphasizes the importance of having the athletes involved in these conversations, because all of the people that were involved are in positions of power for the most part.
This constituency group are the people that have been running the show since the dawn of college sports.
When you appoint somebody to that position, you expect that they lead with integrity and the betterment of the group in mind. But I think it's important to hear from the athletes, because they can give, especially the Olympic athletes or those who are playing Olympic sports, and female athletes, because I know from having friends who play Division I sports that what's going on in a women's soccer program is very different than what's going on in a football or basketball program.
Yeah, I got a bone to pick with you though, because at the end of the day, like, and this is, I've got a lot of issues with how that meeting went down yesterday. And I'd like to say, where are all my capitalist friends? Where have they gone? Like, I thought that, everything I've ever heard is about the wisdom of the markets. And sports have been a business for the last 4 to 5 decades. Let's just get that off the table. It hasn't just become a business overnight. It's been a business forever. And guess what? In business, you have portions of your workforce that bring in revenue, and they're the kings. Like that's kings or the queens, however you want to put it. And
that's not what I'm saying.
Yes, I want to hear from the women athletes unequivocally, because women's basketball makes money overall, right?
Volleyball makes money.
I want to hear from the Olympic athletes unequivocally. But again, this is about revenue sharing, and this is about NIL money. And the majority of people that are going to benefit from that are going to be football players and basketball players. And so they're the ones that if what they're talking about, if they were to, go back in time and just institute the scholarship policy as it used to be, or they talked about the SCORE Act, and we can talk about that in a little more.
That was kind of the premise of the whole conversation, was under the assumption that everybody had read the SCORE Act and understood what it was speaking about.
So do you want to run through with a couple of things the SCORE Act is looking to do?
Yes. So it would allow student athletes to have 5 years of eligibility.
That's it. Tops 5 years.
You don't get to appeal it. You don't get to go to the local judge and say, well, no. You get one transfer opportunity. And they did put a little clause in there saying that in certain circumstances, and they used the example of somebody's father having an ailing illness. And
I want to get closer to home.
Right. And that would be kind of an example of a different circumstance that would allow for a different transfer. But generally, one transfer allowed. So you can't just pop in the portal 4 times. Limiting financial rewards. So not eliminating them, but putting a little bit of a cap on how you can make money. So they're not going influencer status and saying, here, you can post 2 Instagram stories and you'll make $1 million for the year. Check. That would go away. And then the concerns over the bipartisan support, which we already kind of touched on a little bit. I don't know if you want to expand more on.
No, they said that there's no support on the Democratic side of the ledger right now. I think there's a long way to go. And listen, I don't. The SCORE Act might be a good start, but I think it's a long way away from being something that has any chance of even getting through the courts. I mean, the 5-year rule, I understand nobody likes to see 27-year-olds playing against 18-year-olds. There's a safety issue to that. I understand.
It's weird.
The transfer rule, but hold on. So you can always look for examples. So what about someone that served our country at 18 years old and spent 4 years in the military and now is 22 years old coming out and wants to play football at West Point?
They have
why should we stop them from playing football? Like, so there are, it's easy to talk.
That goes back to the special circumstances.
Fair enough.
And drawing the line as to what those special circumstances are. Because again, like you can find an example anywhere, you can find a special circumstance anywhere.
Correct.
So drawing the line as to where those come from.
But I understand the 5 years. I get that I can wrap my head around that. The transfer thing, listen, I've got no sympathy for the coaches.
No.
Because we are where we are in college athletics because of the presidents, because of the athletic directors, because of the coaches. And coaches over-recruit, right? Coaches come in and get rid of players all the time. And then coaches change jobs, some of them like they're changing their underwear. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander in terms of, as far as I'm concerned. Why would you hold an 18-year-old young person to a higher standard than you hold a 60-year-old to? So, I've got some solutions of my own that I think would work. But in terms of the 1-year transfer rule, I want to see what you're giving me on the other side of that, because I'm not necessarily in on that. And then the whole financial rewards thing and limiting that, like, again, what do they say? The devil's in the details. because you're talking about billions of dollars. And if schools are going bankrupt because of college athletics, then they're not running their business very well. And again, if we believe in the wisdom of the markets, then you fail. That's it. You're out of business. You only have so much money. And from what I understand, these business people are geniuses. Like I think the thing that cracks me up a little bit is that a lot of the people in that room have no use for government, no use for government until all of a sudden they need government. And then we need to step in and we need to start regulating stuff. Like, yeah, it's that
What
part of it cracks me up. Listen, the majority of people in that room talk about smaller government. We need less government. We need less overreach, capitalism, free trade. Wait a second. The players are getting paid. Tap the brakes. All of a sudden, we got to stop everything. The workers are making money. So I just, for me, I got a little bit of a kick out of that. But going back to the SCORE Act, I think that you will get, hopefully, it goes up to debate and they're able to, both sides, the conservatives and the progressives, the Democrats, Republicans, however you want to carve them up, they have conversations and they involve all the parties concerned, not just one constituency. And you come up with, listen, I'd like to see everything, college athletics improve as well. But I can tell you right now, and this was something that was said a million times, that the old way was better, that everybody was happy. That's not true. That is not true. There were players that felt like they were being taken advantage of. It goes all the way back to listen, things weren't great back then. Reed Junction boys, Bear Bryant, the boosters for the Alabama football team, they were dropping bales of hay on recruits' front lawns. The bale of hay would explode and there'd be money in there. They had Urban Meyer there talking about, he was upset. He said that NIL collectives were cheating. Huh? I got one name for you, Aaron Hernandez. Like, really, Urban Meyer? You're worried about cheating? You left every program you ever left in shambles because of cheating. It cracked me up, just some of the people in the room. So definitely, I had plenty of bones to pick with kind of how that transpired. And let's be clear, college sports might not be great now, but they weren't so great then either. People getting paid under the table. As someone said, I think I read Barstool the other day, they said the reason that Saban retired is because basically they took away his main advantage, which was paying players, and that they had the best under the table bag job in the country. And now all of a sudden,
once it
everybody
becomes
can get paid.
Playing field, then you can't compete anymore.
And then I do like a running joke. Someone said, and you can pick a team, whether it's Alabama or whatever, and the players didn't like the rule change because they had to take a pay cut. They were making more because they weren't paying taxes before all of a sudden it became public. So
well, and a great point that was brought up with that in mind was making sure that teams playing each other across state lines could look their opponent in the eye and say, yep, all of the rules everybody's on a level playing field in terms of paying taxes, in terms of all of that, kind of making it a little bit more of an umbrella of restrictions or guidelines rather than leaving it up to the states and saying, hey, you can get rid of taxes, but you're not going to get rid of taxes. So
there was a state that just the legislation, and it's Mississippi. Did it pass in the loop that NIL money will not be counted as a taxable income, right?
Right. So, okay, so everybody wants to go play football at Ole Miss then?
No, but that's my point.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, all of a sudden Ole Miss interest is like through the roof because even if you're playing for like, I don't know, men's soccer, the little amount you're making through whatever local deals you're getting is still not getting taxed.
Yeah.
So kind of crazy, but they spoke about that. The reason that I mentioned wanting to hear from the Olympic athletes and the female athletes as well as I agree with you in terms of the demand and the money is coming in through football and basketball
Yeah.
less than football. But and I don't think anybody expects an outcome where everybody's singing kumbaya and gets an equal pay cut in every single sport based off the money that's coming in. Football makes more money, football gets more money. That's how it works. But I think it'd be interesting to hear just overall the perspective of what that looks like and where the standards that are being held, because going back, even take away the financial situation, what standards are these athletes being held to who play football versus who play water polo?
So a couple things, Kels. First of all, I thought that the president and some of the other politicians really using women's sports and Olympic sports as the impetus behind this change was a little bit disingenuous.
It kind of confused me, to be honest.
If the president really cared about women's sports, he probably would have invited the women's team to the White House after they won the gold and not as an add-on after the men won the gold. Again, I got no problem with any of that, but I thought that part was a little disingenuous. The other part of it is this, and I've been saying this since this started happening. So let's go back to 24-25, the Alabama Athletic Department revenue, right? They gave $32.5 million back to the school. Well, moving forward, that's not going to be the case, because is it 20 or 22 million a year revenue sharing, Kelsey?
I think it's 22.
So instead of Alabama Athletic Department cutting a check to Alabama University for 32.5, now they get 10.5.
Yeah.
Now they get a check for 10.5 because, and so, I don't think that Alabama can squeeze any more juice out of the Alabama football revenue stream. 147 million is pretty impressive, right?
People live and breathe Alabama football.
Yeah. So if they can't increase their revenue, but their costs just went up $22 million a year, what do you think's going to happen?
Right.
They're going to start canceling sports.
And for sports that aren't making money and or are putting them in the red,
yeah,
financially, it makes sense.
Listen, it's a business.
That's what I'm saying. So if we're going to treat it like a business, then yes, that makes sense. But then we say, oh, well, then America doesn't.
You've got to honor Title IX. It's the law. And
right.
It's the right thing to do. You got to honor Title IX.
Right.
But then they're going to start to look at sports.
But that's what I'm saying. So then now we're getting to the Olympics every 4 years, and we're looking at skiing, and we're like, oh, the United States has no skiers who've competed collegiately.
Well, listen, this gets back to Kelsey. This gets back to the idea that we're the envy of the world, right?
And
who won most of the gold medals in the Winter Olympics?
Was it Switzerland or Finland?
Norway, right? Norway won it. They don't have college athletics there, and they won more golds than anybody, right? If our model was so great, then how come the number of European players that are joining the NBA, the European players joining the NHL, Latin American players joining the Major League Baseball? The only sport that's really dominated by Americans is football, because no one else plays it. So,
right. Well, I'm not disagreeing.
If college sports is the envy of the world, then how come we have to import so many non-North Americans?
Right. And I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm more putting it in the context of how it's been presented and how it was presented in the meeting.
Yeah. Listen, I think we need to I want to protect all those sports, right? But one of the things that you probably need to do is you can still have a sport without building that sport a $30 million arena or stadium or field or ergonomics or rowing room or whatever. Like you're going to have to, college sports are probably going to have, some of them are going to have to be de-emphasized. And it leads me to my next point, Kels. and I believe this is the case, they're focusing at the wrong end of the problem. And you and I had this conversation before. Things don't trickle down, right? It's been my experience in 58 years.
Roots
Money
grow.
don't trickle down. Money don't trickle down. Culture doesn't trickle down. Culture and everything, it's grassroots, and it grows from there. It elevates. And so if you really want to address the problem in sports, you need to focus on
the youth
sports,
the kids,
right? Youth sports. But unfortunately, I mean, if you think about it, and I know this happens in hockey and I'm sure a bunch of other sports, kids change teams all the time now in youth sports. They don't like it here, they go there. They don't like it here, they go there.
Oh, let's just go to the other club team.
That's right. That's right. So when they get to college,
on your town team, and you stay for your town.
When they get to college, the transfer portal doesn't seem that different to them. It's not much of. It's the same thing.
And that's the crazy thing to me is like, okay, when you talk about all of these components, really, it all just goes back to the values and the morals that we're teaching our children growing up.
Right.
That's all. It all that trickles down to that.
Yes.
If we're going to talk about anything trickling, compassion, loyalty, effort, that trickles from parent to child.
We heard from Randy Levine, who's the president of the Yankees, but I know Aaron Silver was in the room. I don't know if Roger Goodell was in the room. Do you?
I don't believe he was in the room.
But I said this to someone, we were having this discussion, and I said, if you don't think that this has the NFL's attention, you're crazy. Because imagine if the SEC started dropping football games on Sundays. As it currently stands with the antitrust, with all the antitrust laws, it's my understanding that Friday nights have been deemed high school football. And so the NFL is not supposed to drop a lot of games on there until after high school football is over. Saturday's college and Sunday is the NFL. But they were already losing players to the NFL, to the NCAA from the NFL. Some of these quarterbacks can make more money as a starting quarterback in college than they can as a backup in the NFL, right? And if you don't think, if Alabama was playing LSU on a Sunday, and the choice was Alabama, LSU, or New Orleans, who do you think's winning that one? Roger. Right. So it's I think it's got a lot of people's attention.
And they mentioned it in the meeting as well, the getting some more regulations on the TV deals, which is a big part of it, because the reason that the NFL owns Sundays is because they're paying for
it. I mean, I think all of it's also part of, I think there is an antitrust piece with the government for that. But yeah, I mean, you're right. They're paying for it. They have their own day. Football has its own day.
And the networks are going to go where the money is. Yeah. Don't even get me started on the whole television conversation, because I don't even have words for where that's headed. But
I think ESPN just bought the Little League World Series for $12 million.
I thought they already owned it, to be honest. So
well, I mean, it gets re-upped every so many years. So
and I think about, like, Sioux Falls had a team in the Little League World Series. And I think about the coverage. I've never covered 8-year-olds more closely in my whole life. Not even as a child care provider. I have not.
For their travel, Kelsey? Who paid for those players to get the parents? So the parents. Little League World Series is making $17 million.
There is some sponsorship. I don't want to discredit that. There is some sponsorship.
But I think it's local sponsorship. It's not Little League baseball.
No.
For you to come out.
No. It's like the mom and pop restaurant down the road is doing a fundraiser and donating the funds to gas money or whatever it is.
So there was one more elephant in the room that wasn't discussed very much. And then I've got some solutions of my own that we can discuss and you can beat me up on. There wasn't much talk about sports gambling. I heard it from one of the athletic directors, one of the commissioners once, right? But you hear these horror stories of basketball players, especially collegiately, missing a free throw or falling out of a game and getting DM'd from some maniac who's on Draft Kings or FanDuel or Kalshi or whatever, that lost, $150, just absolutely ripping the guy up and down. Like,
well, and it's like they're getting death threats.
They're getting mad. The fact that these guys are getting death threats, getting DM'd, like, again, it's one thing. I guess my point is they are professional. People are literally gambling on it. So I
and
think
they
need to be
gamble on themselves. They can't gamble on. They just passed the ruling that they can gamble on professional sports, but they still can't gamble on any college sports.
Rick Neuheisel ended up, I don't know if he got fired because of it or if he lost a bowl game, but he basically was reprimanded by the NCAA for filling out a March Madness pool. Because back in the day when I coached at Merrimack in Princeton and UMass, you did no gambling, zero. You couldn't fill out a football card. You couldn't buy a square. Now, did it happen? Yeah, of course.
Well, even as
with guys,
journalist, like I look poorly on people that consistently put money down on teams that they cover.
Yeah,
and it happens too. It happens a lot more than you think it does.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of concept because it totally sways your opinion, whether you think it does or not. And at the end of the day, you're getting paid to cover a team, to share opinions that are supposed to be unbiased.
Yep. I got to address again. Nick Saban was there, and I got a lot of respect from him as a coach. I think obviously he won a ton of titles at Alabama, but he's not doing himself any favors. He talked about the NILs and the collectives. One of his points was that fans and supporters don't like the portal. Well, I would ask him, which fans, Coach Saban? Alabama's fans? Because I'm pretty sure that Indiana's fans don't mind the portal or the transfer portal.
The portal helped win them a national championship.
Yeah, and then to talk about again, I think he's a good man. I think he's a good coach, and I do think that he cared about the development of his team and the development of the individual team players on that team. But just giving off the impression that Alabama was going to pay him $9 million, or I think his last year was $11.5 million to educate 100 men. Like, yeah, no, you were there to win. You were there to win. You did all those other things. That's wonderful. And I do think that plays a part in success. But let's be candid. That's not why you were hired to be the coach at Alabama. You hired to be the coach of Alabama because you won football games. That's it.
Right.
So
if they were paying $11 million to teach 100 kids in a section, that's essentially what it's compared to. Now, I did like the part that he spoke about bringing back the educational component. And he said it in the conversation about the transfer portal, because he was like, not only is the transfer portal hurting all of the other things we've already discussed, but it's hurting what the kids are there for in the first place, which is an education. And yes, sometimes they go to college to play a sport, and that is how they're going to certain schools or this, that, the other. But at the end of the day, they're still walking out or expected to walk out with a degree. And so the transfer portal and turning it into a full-time job doesn't help in maintaining their studies and actually being able to learn the skills of working in a college classroom.
But again, Kelsey, it's disingenuous. This is the same group. That when the Northwestern football players tried to unionize and they wanted to be able to pick their own majors, fought them, right? So my question to all those football coaches would be, okay, so do you let your players study whatever they want? And the answer would probably be no.
Right.
They can't study whatever they want. So you can bitch about the transfer portal all you want. You're being somewhat of a hypocrite if you're not letting them study what they want, and if they can't miss practice because of a lab. So again, the horse has left the barn.
Right.
I believe, and I learned this in college. I'll never forget it. I think it was Don Cronin or Greg Cronin was a football player at Boston College, and he came and he spoke to us as freshmen, and he said, "There's no such thing as a free ride. They're gonna get every penny out of you that they can. You know, you're gonna work. You're gonna be asked to perform. You're gonna be asked to practice." He said you're gonna grow a little gold ring in your nose, and they're gonna pull that ring wherever they want it to be. You've got to make sure it's your responsibility to make sure that you get a degree. That's the payment back for you. And this is before the NIL or before people getting paid or whatever. That's your responsibility. And I would say the same thing. It's the player's responsibility to make sure that they get a degree. The coaches can help. And what the coaches can't do is get in the way. You can't get in the way of them getting a degree. So,
well,
again,
and
thought it was disingenuous
or not, I think it's a good point.
It is a good point. You're right. You're right.
Whatever the motivation behind it is, and I agree with you that I think there's definitely some hypocrisy going on.
Yeah.
It's still something that people need reminded, because that's like it goes back to that youth sport conversation again. Parents talking about their 7-year-old going and playing Division I on a full ride, and that's why they're putting them through 13 to 14 years of individualized, specialized training that ends with them being burnt out and going and doing something else.
And again, we talk about schools. I don't, I'm not going to give away the name, but I got a call from a parent who was local to Merrimack, not in the area. Someone that I knew who had called me about his son transferring from Dartmouth to Merrimack because he wasn't happy with the ice time he was getting as a freshman hockey player at Dartmouth. And I listened to him for a few minutes, and his son was a pretty good hockey player and definitely would have made my team and, could have potentially made it better. But I literally said to him, like, I cannot in good faith play a part in your son leaving an Ivy League school like Dartmouth, where he's only a freshman. We don't know how this story is going to end. But I'm not going to play a part in him leaving Dartmouth to come to Merrimack, all due respect, because academically they're night and day. And he ended up transferring. He did. He ended up going somewhere else. And my guess is, well, I know because he had the same experience he would have had if he stayed at Dartmouth. So trust me, there aren't a lot of people putting academics ahead of athletics these days. That's for sure. But no. Anything else to cover before I kind of add some solutions?
No, I think that solutions. We're a big proponent in our house of, if you're going to present a problem, come ready with a solution. This is no secret or no different. No. And I think that they started doing that in this meeting.
They did.
I would be intrigued to know and see all of the further meetings.
Yeah.
I think that is my first thought is I want to see, and I want it to be as open and publicized as it was this past weekend.
The problem is they kept talking about how urgent this issue is and how they had to come with a solution, and there was going to be an executive order. And my guess is the executive order is going to come much quicker than these meetings are going to take place. And we'll see. Who knows?
The president said it will be here in a week.
And if they can solve it in a week, that'd be wonderful. I'll take the over. And I'm not a gambler. Anyways, couple things that I have that I think I'd be willing to share and talk about a little bit. First of all, you got to use the NIL in a proper fashion. And that means that, number one, it's the players and whether you want them to have, again, I think everyone has the right to representation. So you want to call them an agent, you want to call them a lawyer, you want to, whatever you want to call them. If the players can elicit name, image, and likeness compensation on their own, they should be allowed to do that. I don't think the school should have anything to do with it. And the hard part's going to be boosters approaching, recruitable athletes. They're already doing it in high school. High school players are already getting NIL, which again leads me to my point about we're starting at the wrong spot. We should be starting in the grassroots. Anyways, I just think you get rid of the collectives, and NIL is NIL. What if you can? It's an open market, fair trade. If you earn it, if it's something that someone wants to pay you for your name, image, and likeness, have at it. But the school should be out of it, and it shouldn't be a collective. So I agree with them on that front. In terms of the portal and in terms of compensation, again, like as long as football coaches are going to make 11 and a half, 13 and a half million dollars, I think the players should get paid. I think they have the right to negotiate whatever deal they can negotiate. And if you want to stop the transfer portal, it is very simple. Or if they have 5 years, 5-year contracts. And there has to be a buyout component to it. If you want, add some caveats where if they give them some standards or some marks to hit academically, so that if you get 32 credits, you get this bonus. If you get this, you graduate, you get another bonus. If you want to add an academic piece to it, I'm all for it. I have no problem with that at all. I think it'd probably be a good idea. Incentivize them to go to school. No problem with it. But having contracts and having buyouts eliminates all the transfers. The problem is, and I've said this before, coaches don't want contracts because they can't clean up their recruiting mistakes. All these guys that are supposedly great coaches, right, are really unbelievable recruiters. That's what they do better than anybody. Right. And so they get the best players. So I think that, especially with the revenue sharing, there should be contracts, and maybe we do get to the point where the players unionize and the colleges have to organize and create a salary cap or some sort of structure like that. I don't want to be socialist and all of a sudden inhibit capitalism, but if it means saving the entire piece, if the colleges and the college presidents and the ADs can't figure out how to spend their money appropriately, and you need the government to get involved and put something together, then so be it. But I do believe contracts, let the players get their own NILs. And then the last piece is you're not going to be able to afford to do it all to the same level that you currently do it. Right. And so certain sports, you don't get rid of them, you de-emphasize them, right? And maybe what you do now, if your athletic director isn't out there raising donations from boosters for NIL money, maybe they can go out and they can sponsor the gymnastics team because that's an Olympic squad, or you want the skiing team, or the figure skating club, or whatever team you want. So you're going to have revenue sharing. You definitely have to include Title IX as part of this, so that there's equity in terms of the revenue sharing. And then with these other sports, I think you need to de-emphasize them a little bit, which isn't going to be. The world will keep spinning, and go out and get sponsors, or have the athletic departments go out and find people that want to help these Olympic sports. Because the irony is, Kelsey, we do that already. I don't think the federal government spends any money to train our Olympic athletes. It's all done by the U.S. Olympic Committee, which is a separate entity.
It's all done by the U.S. Olympic Committee and or the parents and guardians of these young kids or adolescents as they grow up are paying for them to get this training because they can't get it elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, and so it's,
I don't know if that solves it all. I do think that, again, I don't want to oversimplify a very complicated situation, but I just get a kick out of where are all my capitalists, all my buddies that are free trade, all of a sudden disappear when it comes to the work of getting paid. How do we want to finish, Kels? What's up next? I guess I know we have a pretty good guest coming up. We're going to get back to some of the youth stuff. It's going to be very positive. in terms of but we won't. Maybe we can announce it next week after
We'll
we tape it. We'll
We'll
do a
tease
little
it.
tease.
Yeah.
So
It'll be a good one, and definitely one from a place and organization that is getting a lot of attention as of late.
yeah.
They've been doing a really great job marketing. And so it'll be interesting to get perspective on that and on the whole situation. So we will definitely have that and all of our resources up on our website. As we do for every episode, but that'll do it for today. Thanks for sticking with us. The two of us out of our probably whole family probably have the most opinions.
Well,
the loudest about our opinions.
We share them more than we probably. I share them more than I should. Thank you, Kelsey, for this outlet, for letting me share.
Oh, anytime. But thank you, all of our listeners or viewers who are here with us at this point. Definitely let us know what your thoughts on this whole situation are. If you agree with something we said, if you disagree, let us know. We want to hear. This is a conversation that is going to continue being had, and we want to be a part of it. So definitely let us know. Like, comment, subscribe, and follow us on all of our social media at Youth Sports Positive. It's at Youth Sport Pause on Twitter. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. For my dad, Mark Dennehy, myself, make sure that you're doing something to bring the work hard, have fun mentality back to any sport in your life, because it comes from the roots. And that is all we got for you. We will see you soon. Bye.